Thanks for listening to the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast, where each week we talk about a free piece or two of technology you can use in your classroom. I'm your host, Shannon Martin. I'm a middle school teacher, technology, and instructional coach for my district.
And I'm Fuzz Martin. I'm her husband and edgy producer, and we're glad to have you on the show today.
That works.
It was tough coming up with a pun for this week's episode, I have to admit.
That's okay. It was a good effort.
Yeah. Usually
I'll applaud you.
Slow on it, but here we are.
That's okay.
110 episodes, Shanna.
Yes.
110.
Wow. I'm going to start singing the Phineas and Ferb. It's 100 and... it's like 101 days
of summer vacation or something like that now.
But we're at 110.
Yeah, but we are at 101 episodes away from the topic that we talked about this topic a long, long time ago.
Yes, 101 episodes ago.
101 episodes ago. So if you want to go back and listen, I recommend just listening to all the episodes. Just put it on, listen straight through.
Yeah,
some people have been doing that.
Yes, a little car trip or something, or hanging out in your classroom. I find I'll play podcasts when it's like a work day. Not that you could ever get a full work day in your classroom, but get some time just to play so I can like listen and stuff while I'm working.
You sitting on the rowing machine or the elliptical after work, maybe.
Yeah.
So trying to tune out your family as you're cooking dinner.
Just put your AirPods and run. So this week we are talking about Edublogs, which again we're joking about. It was mentioned in episode 9.
Yep.
Which was 101 episodes ago.
Correct.
And that was back in the day when I was chatting about 3 or 4 things at once. So there's shorter amounts of information on stuff. So I thought I'd come back to Edublogs. It is super useful in any content area. And so that's why I feel like we could spend a little more time with Edublogs today and kind of talk about all the cool ins and outs of how it works. So, So Edublogs is free, like all of our other fantabulous sites.
Yes.
And you can sign up as a teacher, and it's a free blog. You can also like connect through schools and districts, like that is an option. If you want like district-wide e-portfolios and stuff, they do have an option for that, but that's more of like a paid thing through Campus Press. But with Edublogs, as a teacher, you can create your own blog. It's a starting point.
Yep.
So I'll talk about how to connect students to this later, but you start with Edublogs, sign yourself up, use your email, and you have a blog. Okay. Ta-da. Easy enough. It's got a ton of options. It's not totally overwhelming, but you do need to kind of pay attention when you're navigating, because you can navigate away from stuff and then be like, I don't know where things are. So once you create everything, you plug in all your information, and you can visit your site directly if you want to. And you have a little dashboard that has all the information you could possibly need to figure out how to do your blog. Once you have your blog set up, you can write your own posts. So you can use Edublogs just as an educator to communicate with parents or communicate with family or communicate with your students if you want to. Like just keep a weekly blog, kind of almost like a newsletter. You could use it.
Yeah.
You can plug in your information. You can add images. You can add, like video clips. It's a blog. It's straight, very flexible. They have little templates that you can pick from if you want something cutesy, or you can start from scratch. And so you could use it just as a blog yourself for, again, communicating with students or parents or whatever you want to. Or you can take it to the next step. So when you are a teacher and you've created your own blog, you then have the option. So they have like your guide on the left-hand side of your screen, and you can click on My Class. So a couple of things. Your students can all create blogs, and then they click Join Class, and it links their blog to your class blog. So they can join you.
Yep.
And then be a part of a class like set, basically.
Sure.
And then it'll say like site and then put in all your information. Or as a teacher, you can create a class, make a class blog, and then you can have students blogging within the same space. So you can do it one of 2 ways. Either have students do the same process you did by creating their own, and then they join your class and they link it to you, or you create a class blog, and then the kids can write within the blog that you create. So there's 2 different options. When I've used this with my students, I have them create their own and then link to mine.
Sure.
Because they're in middle school, I have 8th grade. So it's a little different. I think with younger students, you would definitely
want them to be in yours.
Yeah. And then let them allow to like blog and join a part of it.
Sure.
But definitely middle school, high school, they can create their own. It's all within this educational space too. So you have control over your class. So when the kids connect to your class, you can see their stuff. Like there could be a student where they create their own and kind of do everything on their own, which would be fine. You cannot, if they don't link it to you, you don't control it.
Yeah. I mean, you could see the
You can see all their stuff, but But if you link it to you, then you can approve, like, I must be able to approve all comments. Only registered users of Edublogs can even view my site. So you can set your settings. So it's very specific. So like only the teacher can see this, or only someone who types in this password can see my work. So you can definitely put a lot of protections on there for your students, which is awesome. So you don't just have random blogs out there with who knows what's reading them.
And their name and all of the information. Sure.
Exactly. So it can be protected. So that's within join a class. And then when you have posts, you can see all of your blog posts just like you would in if you're blogging in like WordPress. It's set up very similarly, where you have your information, you have like you can put in your categories, you can put in your tags, you can see when it's published or when it's not published, or you can continue to write and then edit as you'd like to, just like in any other type of blog. You have like all the different like media libraries. So if you're uploading images and pictures, it collects all that. You can change the appearance, your themes. You can add plugins. You can connect users, tools. So it's all of the basic blogging stuff. There are a few things under like tools and settings. Like if you want to put Google Analytics on, you do have to do the paid version. So there are certain pieces that are going to be like upgrades for a paid version.
Yep.
But as a teacher, to use this for blogging, it's fantastic. And I should say I use it more than just, like I used it very much when I was teaching a computers class. Where I had my students blogging. We blogged every day. Like that was kind of like how we track things. That was how they practice their typing skills and all that kind of stuff. But as a teacher, you can use this in any content area.
Sure.
So if you wanted to be able to create blogs for your students about a specific topic, so maybe they become a writer expert in a certain unit you're teaching, or maybe you've decided you're going to put in like 20% projects with your students and you want them to track their journey through their 20% project. Or if you have high school kids and you want them to be able to keep a portfolio of all of their work and their resume and
that's a great idea.
Like internships, like all that kind of stuff, they could put that into their blog and use this. It becomes a live link. It's theirs. Again, as a teacher, you can control it when they join your class.
Sure. Do they need a student email address in order to sign in? Is that how, or does it not matter?
They use their email address.
Sure. I mean, but does it require a .edu or a whatever the?
No, because I think all districts are different, because some are .org and some are .edu and some are
.com
like,
even,
or through the state. Like they're all kind of a little bit different.
Yep.
You just click teacher or student, or like what category you fall into when you're creating it.
Okay.
And then you create a username that goes with it.
Yep.
And then you connect it that way.
So anybody familiar with blogging, if you are familiar with blogging, this is a WordPress-based site. So Edublogs is essentially built on WordPress. If you've used WordPress, and I think WordPress builds like 70% of the websites in the world. Like smartandwi.com is a WordPress site. And a lot of the big sites that you go to on the web are even WordPress sites, because they're so super easy to use, but it's a very familiar background when you get in there. So how to create a new post or to, add images and those kinds of things, it's all very familiar. And even for students, getting them started with this will help them down the road no matter what, because there's a good chance, whether they're, working in business or one of those things down the road, they may, or even just personal stuff, they might end up having a WordPress site.
Right. And being familiar with all the workings of it. And when the students open up, even if they're connected to yours, whether they join your class or you connect them to your class, they have the same toolbar, they have the same setup where they go to blog and they do all their writing and their editing and all that kind of stuff. So it's set up.
It's not as
the same
like
as your page.
It doesn't allow you to add like all the plugins that would, at least on the kids side, I think, right?
Correct.
That would might cause issues or security problems, things like that. So it's a controlled WordPress environment.
Yes. Yeah. And it just, there's so many ways that students can use it. And like you said, become more familiar with like the skill set, which is, we're seeing more and more kids having digital portfolios and putting together their things digitally. So, and it works really well with Chromebooks and any like computer. There's no issue between what you're using it on, as long as you have a keyboard, I should say, but even you can do it on an iPad if you want to. And yeah, super familiar, and it's pretty user friendly once you kind of get to know the tools a little bit. And yeah, they just click new, they can throw in a new post, create a new link, add pages to their blog, and it's pretty cool setup.
Yeah. And you know, just the ability, I mean, you were talking about it before on some of the different things that you can do when you're doing a, you know, social studies project. Maybe you're doing, you know, letters from the front line or something, you know, like having kids kind of get into that mindset, and then both writing and
even a great way to connect to the community. You know, if the school has their own like blog set up and each teacher posts, or you know, our students can weigh in a bit, it's kind of a cool way to connect and send it out on social media, you know, and share it with families.
Oh yeah.
And there's a couple other pieces when you're adding to the editor. You can actually, when you're in Edublogs, when you click new, you can do a regular post if you choose to, but it also will drop into like a block editor where then you can go through and like edit your paragraphs or images and kind of do your setup. So it's not just straight writing too. So there's some flexibility with how you're viewing things as you're editing too, which is kind of cool.
It is cool. It's very cool.
Yeah. So Edublogs, it is a fantastic site to use in any content area. I mean, I don't think there's a content area you couldn't use it in, because if students are going to be writing about what's talking about and what they're learning about, then you can use it pretty much anywhere. I do suggest probably middle school, high school. If you're going to use it with younger students, then you just will have to do more front-loading work as a teacher, just because you want to make sure that they're setting it up properly.
Yeah. So to get there, it's Edublogs, edublogs.org. We'll get you to the Edublogs. Yeah. And get you
sign yourself up.
Get you started edublogging.
There you go. Well, thanks for tuning in. This has been the Tech Tools for Teachers podcast. If you ever have any questions, you can find me on Twitter @SmartNWI. And if you want to get more information on the links to the technology discussed in this episode, you can visit smartnwi.com. Don't forget about the EdTech Directory.
Yeah.
If you'd like to support the show, please consider buying me a coffee or two. Visit buymeacoffee.com/SmartNWI or visit smartnwi.com and click on the purple coffee cup. Your donations help keep this show going. New episodes each week. Thanks for listening. Go educate and innovate.
And one quick thing, and Shanna's going to pin this to the top of her Twitter account @SmartNWI. Shanna is in the running. This podcast is in the running for Podcash, which is a way for so the show is supported by the ads that you hear at the beginning and end of the show, but really, aside from speaking engagements and things like that, we don't have sponsors or anything like that. So Podcash is giving away $100,000 to podcasters, spreading it out, spreading the love. So gifts of $250 up to $5,000. If you like the show, go to Shanna's Twitter account, SmartNWI. The top post will be pinned there. It will be a link to her Podcash Love Letters piece. And all you have to do is just write a quick thing about why you like this show. It's a 280 character max. Put your email address in, click the button. Once you click that, you'll get an email, and you just have to click the link to verify so that they know you're not spammy. And you could be helping Shanna continue to do this show, and she puts in a whole heck of a lot of work to make this happen, and she's very passionate about it, as you know, because you listen. So go do that. Podcash at the top of Shanna's Twitter page @SmartNWI. S. Martin, Wisconsin. By the way, that ends March 25th, 2022. The ideas and opinions expressed in this podcast and the Smart and WI website are those of the author, Shanna Martin, and not of her employer. Prior to using any of the technologies discussed on this podcast, please consult with your employer regulations. This podcast offers no guarantee that these tools will work for you as described, but we sure hope they do. Thanks for listening.